head. But I'm making a video for Sister Hooper, but I'm trying the biscuits with sour cream. I've never made them before, and so I'm gonna see how they work. I don't know if they're gonna work or not, but we'll see. So here's my butter. I cut it up into small little chunks, and you can see how it's hard. It's been in the freezer for a little bit. And then we're gonna do 2 cups of self-rising flour. So here's 1. Open my other bag. I feel like I'm on a cooking show. I don't know that I would be very good on the cooking show. Okay. What, honey? Ah! Too much. Uh-huh. I think he will. So here's our 2nd cup of flour in the bowl. Oh, and one other thing that I forgot to tell you is, whoops. Sorry, this is the worst video ever. One thing that I forgot to tell you is that you're gonna need a pastry cutter too. I think they have these at Walmart. But it is to break up the butter, and you use this for like pie crust too. They're really cheap, not that expensive. But I'll show you what I'm doing. So I'm just using it to incorporate the butter into the flour, and you want it really fine. Like, you don't want these big chunks of butter because you cook biscuits at a really high heat, and if we were to cook these biscuits with these big chunks of butter in it, it would just run out of the biscuits. It wouldn't be good. So, so you just use this, and I'm pushing down pretty hard, but I'm trying to cut up the butter so that it is like the consistency of cornmeal. You know how cornmeal is kind of rough, so I'm going to try to get those butter pieces as small as that. And it kind of takes a minute, so sorry if you're having to watch me do this. But since we only put a 1/4 cup of, sorry, that was a 1/4 cup of butter. This recipe, since it has sour cream, it only calls for a 1/4 cup. The first recipe I sent you had 1/2 cup of butter. So we'll see if this one's any good. The instructions are a little different. I don't know, I haven't decided if I'm gonna follow them fully or not, or if I'm gonna like use my intuition that I've gained from making biscuits. So I'm not sure. But on this one, if you don't have a pastry cutter, it said you could use, ooh, it's raining, a handheld mixer. But I feel like if you do that, flour is just gonna go everywhere. So I don't know about that. But I think that's just, obviously that's for people who don't have a pastry cutter. So I think we're almost there. I'm gonna call that good. And then next, let's see what's on the bag. I think we add our sour cream and our milk. So now we're gonna add the milk and the sour cream. You don't need any more, you gotta eat your breakfast. Sorry, I should have had everything ready, but I did not. Okay, so we're gonna do a 1/4 cup of sour cream. Yeah. I don't think that was sour cream. Dang it, that was yogurt. Yeah, I'll be done in just a minute. Thought that was a little runny for sour cream. To help me plan and save on groceries, we've been doing HelloFresh, like meal kits, and so these are from that. And sometimes they send yogurt in these little packs too. We don't use all the sour cream because I don't really like sour cream. So if it's like in a sauce, I'll use it, but if it's like topped with sour cream, I usually don't use it. But it's handy to have them like for times like this. I'm gonna need just a hair more. I'm not gonna jip us on the goodness of sour cream in these. I've never made or heard of biscuits with sour cream in them, so it's gonna be interesting. Okay, so a 1/4 cup of sour cream going in, and I forgot my scraper, so I'm using my clean finger because it's just me eating them. Alright, and now our milk. 3/4 cup of milk. I just have 2% milk, so that's what I'm gonna use. 3/4, not quite to the top. Okay, and now I'm gonna use my hand. And I'm just like, I don't know if you can see, I'm like stirring around the flour and like stirring it into the milk and the dairy. Hopefully you can see. But again, not to overwork the dough, I'm just trying to get it incorporated with as little friction as possible. And you're gonna have dough all over your hands, so I try to clean it off a little bit so that it can all get in there, but you're trying, and sometimes I even like squish it. That helps. But it's a messy job. It's a messy job. I don't remember. I need to make the other ones with just butter, with like just butter and buttermilk again to see if they were this messy. But I have a feeling that they were. And I think I'm gonna keep rolling with these because it says to let them chill for, like, let them rest for 3 minutes. I don't really know why you would do that. So I'm gonna keep rolling with these. I just got some parchment, so it's easier to cut them out and easier to work with them. And I'm gonna turn it out onto the parchment. See, so it's still really crumbly, but I'm gonna try to, as I'm like patting it out, so like once again, minimizing the friction. I have to pat them out, I know, so I'm gonna incorporate these little crumbs when I'm patting them out so that I don't have to incorporate the crumbs and then pat them out. Like that. These are glare, you can't really see. So I'm just taking the wet parts and squishing it down on the dry parts. To just kind of like pick them up and put them in the dough. It's a very, very technical baking with Southern Sheena over here. Okay, I've almost got all the crumbs, a lot of which are on my hands, but it's okay. We'll deal with it. So try to get it off your hands. If you can't, just wash it off. You could do a couple batches, so if you need a good number of biscuits, which you do because you have a big family, and no one can eat just one biscuit. I know I can't. So there's no sense in trying to have people eat one. Okay, let me wash my hands off. Glasses are falling down You can even use a glass, but here's what our dough looks like. So it's just a big ball of dough, and it's a little bit, so I'm gonna pat it down just a little bit more, because I don't want it quite that thick. Once again, I'm just trying to get all the pieces and the edges. And so as you cut, I kind of like, I'll try to show you. So here's how thick it is. I mean, I leave it pretty thick. It's probably like an inch thick. And let's see if I can have you down here where you can see. So as I cut it, I'm gonna fold in, can't see because that, the edge. So I'm gonna use the cutter and I'm like right on the edge of the dough. And so I cut one and then I'm gonna put it on my pan. I'll show you the pan. So see, you have this edge. So I just kind of fold it in so that I could cut another one and use that. And so they may kind of be odd shaped, but I like it because you use the dough. You don't waste the dough. So I'm just cutting, gently pressing out. What are you whining about, babe? And I wanted these to cook on 475. The other recipe cooks on 450, so I'm kind of wondering about that because 475 is really hot. But maybe it's because of the sour cream, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I wish I was, so I could be like, nah, we don't need to do that. My cutter is getting a little gunked up, but we're almost done. Probably two more. And the last one is usually pretty ugly because you're trying to like use all the remnants. But it's okay, they'll still taste good. Even if they're ugly, they still taste good. And so for the last one, I'm just gonna kind of mold it into a little circle. So yeah, see, very ugly. All right, wash and I'll show you. Okay. Oh. I've got Grayson's speech therapy in just a minute. So here they are. You can see they're pretty thick. Mostly round, but mine are not perfect. So don't feel like they have to be perfect circles. This one's probably the best one. I think that's the first one that I cut out. So that's what they look like. I'm baking them on a silicone mat just because I like to do that. It helps things not burn on the bottom. But if you don't have one, it's no big deal. You don't want to grease your baking sheet. So if you want something down under them, probably a piece of parchment would be best. And I'm turning the oven down. I'm using my intuition and I'm turning the oven down to 450. So we're gonna see what these babies do. All right, going in. And I'm gonna check them in like 10 minutes.